Welcome to Factual America, where we dig beneath the headlines and shine a spotlight on the stories shaping your life and your freedom. Today, we're venturing into the world of finance, big business, and social engineering. A world where your everyday decisions, investments, and even your personal values may already be scored and tracked. It's time to talk about ESG scores and how, whether you realize it or not, you're already living with a social credit system, American style. Think social credit system, and your mind might jump to images of surveillance cameras in China, facial recognition, and citizens losing access to services because of their behavior. But what if I told you that a similar system is taking root right here in the West? Not from the government directly, but via the global financial sector? It's called ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance Scores. And while it wears the mask of virtue, it has some serious implications for your freedom, your wallet, and your future. Let's start with the basics. ESG scores are like a report card, not for you personally, but for corporations, assessing them on 3 pillars: E for environmental impact, S for social responsibility, and G for governance practices. Now at a glance, that might sound harmless, maybe even noble. Shouldn't companies be held accountable for polluting rivers, mistreating workers, or shady accounting? The problem isn't the desire for ethical business, but who decides what good or bad means, and what happens when those definitions change overnight. Here's the twist. ESG scores go far beyond simply urging companies to behave ethically. Instead, they build a framework where corporations are pressured, or outright forced, into aligning with progressive social and political causes, often with little democratic input. It's not just about recycling programs, it's about mandatory diversity quotas, climate activism, political donations, and more. And here's where it affects you, the everyday citizen. You might think, oh, I'm not a CEO, so why should I care? But when a company's ESG score determines whether it can get loans, attract investors, or even bank accounts, those companies change their products, services, and even their messaging to appease the agencies who choose the right beliefs. That cascades down. Your favorite brands, banks, and employers start requiring you to toe the same ideological line, or risk exclusion from modern life. This isn't science fiction. We've already seen examples. Remember when certain crowdfunding platforms and banks cut off clients and causes that went against popular narratives? Or when payment processors froze funds to groups labeled controversial by media or advocacy groups, often with little recourse or transparency? Now imagine that same process systematized and scaled globally. That's the future ESG opens up, dressed up as corporate responsibility, but functioning like a digital blacklist. Let's zoom in on how ESG works in practice. International agencies like MSCI, Sustainalytics, and S&P Global assign ESG scores using a murky mix of criteria, ranging from carbon emissions to diversity on the boardroom, to where a company stands on gun rights, energy, and political issues. What counts as good is constantly shifting, often following the latest trends in academia or activism, with little input from ordinary consumers, voters, or even many shareholders. Here's the next plot twist. ESG isn't tracked just by NGOs or rating agencies. The world's biggest asset managers, think BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, have gone all in on ESG, publicly declaring that they won't invest in, lend to, or partner with companies failing to meet socially responsible standards as defined by these shifting criteria. That means your retirement fund, your insurance company, and even your bank may be rewarded or punished based on how closely they follow the ESG playbook. You may ask, isn't this just supply and demand? If woke capitalism really bothers people, shouldn't the market correct itself? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. With global financial giants and government agencies linking investments, loans, and regulatory privileges to ESG scores, competition is undermined. Main Street businesses or entire industries, like coal, oil, firearms, or family farms, are choked off, not by what consumers actually want, but by what distant ESG rating boards approve. And let's not forget the ultimate reality check: ESG doesn't just punish businesses or industries that cross ideological lines. It also creates a chilling effect, discouraging anyone from speaking up against politically favored narratives for fear of financial retribution. Imagine a world where your neighborhood bank manager or regional CEO says, "Sorry, we can't do business with you, it hurts our ESG score." Sounds a lot like that Chinese social credit system, doesn't it? Now, for today's big revelation. ESG scoring is leaking out of the corporate world and inching closer to individuals. In some pilot programs abroad, banks already assign personal ESG or carbon scores, grading people on their spending habits, travels, or even social media posts. Digital wallets and new financial technologies, many backed by government and industry partnerships, are capable of tracking personal choices, all for the good of the environment or to promote equity. Sound far-fetched? Consider this. Several Western banks now offer carbon footprint trackers tied to your debit card usage. These tools encourage you to improve your score by spending less on travel, meat, or fuel, using methods and metrics popularized by ESG. Soon, you might be nudged, shamed, or even penalized for shopping at the wrong store or posting the wrong meme. Let's step back and ask ourselves, who really benefits from this gamified regulation of private life? Is it ordinary Americans? Or is it the unelected managers, bureaucrats, and activists who shape these rules? As with so many good intentions in history, ESG risks enabling a new kind of soft tyranny, one that rewards conformity under the friendly mask of responsibility. Some apologists argue that ESG is about justice or sustainability. But if the ends are so noble, why do they require secrecy, backroom deals, and coercion? If businesses only succeed by chasing political points, what does that mean for real innovation, diversity of thought, or ordinary jobs? Whether you lean left or right, you should be wary of any system where anonymous gatekeepers dictate who's worthy. Let's add another twist. ESG isn't just a domestic experiment. The European Union, United Nations, and World Economic Forum are pushing global ESG harmonization, encouraging every multinational, bank, and investment house to impose the same standards worldwide. That means local values, traditions, and industries are often steamrolled in the name of progress. If you prize national sovereignty, local control, or even the right to disagree, you should start paying attention. But maybe you're still skeptical. Maybe you think, surely this can't touch me. Let's look at the future of digital currency, something quietly gaining ground. Governments and central banks are developing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, which can be programmed to block certain types of spending, reward compliant behavior, and even expire if not used the right way. Combine digital currency with ESG-style scorekeeping, and you have a system where your access to money, travel, or healthcare could change based on whether you check the right boxes this month. Scared yet? Sadly, this isn't paranoia, it's policy. In 2023, the UK and Canada both piloted programmable currency models, marketed as environmentally responsible and secure. The World Economic Forum hosts panels lauding ESG, digital ID, and programmable money as tools to steer behavior. It's all about nudging. Bureaucrats speak for subtly controlling your choices until only one path remains, the path picked out by elites. As always, there's a counter-narrative that deserves attention. Proponents of ESG argue that consumers want companies to be socially responsible and that voluntary transparency is a good thing. But transparency only works if it's truly voluntary and not used as leverage for political control. Should a faith-based bakery be denied bank services for low diversity? Should a rural town lose investments because farming isn't green enough? These aren't hypothetical scenarios. They're reality in some parts of the world. Let's be clear. Nobody is arguing for reckless pollution or neglecting justice. But there's a fine line between wanting companies to do the right thing and building an unaccountable scoring regime that blacklists dissent and rewards loyalty to trending ideologies. Real reform comes from consumer choice, open debate, and the ballot box, not shadowy ESG committees setting the rules from a glass conference room in Davos. Here's the silver lining. The story isn't over yet. Across America and the world, lawmakers, investors, and ordinary citizens are beginning to push back. A growing number of states are banning ESG-based discrimination or insisting that investment managers focus on financial returns, not politics. Some banks are even advertising ESG-free products, letting you decide for yourself where to invest. The pendulum can swing if enough people demand it. So what can you do? First, stay informed. Understand how your bank, investments, and favorite brands use ESG scores. Second, support local businesses and organizations committed to true transparency, not ideological litmus tests. Third, demand that lawmakers in Washington, your state, and your community stand up for open markets, free speech, and individual rights in the face of this corporate social credit system. At Factual America, our goal is to help you see through the smoke and mirrors. ESG scoring isn't just a boardroom buzzword. It's a creeping form of control that puts faceless corporations and activists between you and your future. Whether you see it as a shortcut to progress or a shortcut to tyranny, one thing is clear. It's here, and it's growing. Will you stand by, or will you speak up? Let us know what you think. Is ESG just a fad, or is it a looming threat to liberty? Do you have stories about corporate ESG policies affecting your life, your job, or your investments? We want to hear from you in the comments. Your input helps drive our future episodes. And don't forget to subscribe to Factual America, where we put truth and freedom first. What should we tackle next? CBDCs, digital ID, or free speech online? Make your voice heard and stay tuned for another dive beneath the surface.